Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. I'm your host, Calvin Timms. You can find me over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin. And thank you guys for coming back to another one of my Rate Your Rosters. And this one was a particularly hard, just like the word particularly, I struggle getting that one out there, but it was a very hard roster to really give a good rating on, and you'll see why here in just 1 second. But just in case you guys have missed it, the last couple of weeks I have put out my sleeper options, the top 12, the 3 candidates at each position that are going to jump up into the top 12 this year and going forward. The 3 candidates inside the top 12 that are the riskiest that you should probably sell on or try and buy low possibly. And those are all over on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to the podcast. So wherever you're listening, please, if you could, like, comment, and subscribe on the video. I know it's redundant. I hate asking for it, but all the help you guys can give me, I truly, truly appreciate. So today, just jumping into it, we're going to go right into this roster. And so far, what we have is a 12-team PPR, 2-point tight end premium, one of the funnest settings, and it's a super flex as well. I didn't write that down here, but it is a super flex. One of the funnest forms and most challenging forms is the 2.0 tight end premium. If you've never been in tight end premium, one, I do like it. I'd suggest it at least at 1.5 point tight end premium because it just makes the tight end so much more valuable. But 2 point just makes them ridiculous. Like, tight ends are just bonkers in this league. So the volume heavy tight ends are very, very nice. So the roster settings, you got 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex, and 1 super flex. So it's a very deep starting pool, 10 total players if I can count right. And yeah, this roster was very difficult. As you can kind of see some of the names here if you're watching over on YouTube or on Rumble. The quarterback position, and I'll start there with my breakdown. Trey Lance and Justin Fields are the 2 premier names here on this roster, followed by Carson Wentz, Baker Mayfield, and Desmond Ridder. So obviously, all the potential and all the future is built into Trey Lance and Justin Fields. That's pretty obvious here. They're what everything on this roster and this quarterback position really rides on. With it being super flex, you need both of those guys. Oh, and one other note too, for this league, it's 6-point passing touchdowns as well. So that adds a little bit more to the quarterback and nerfs the rushing guys a little bit more. So that's why Trey Lance and Justin Fields I have a lot of faith in them going forward, but they're not as broken as you would expect someone like them to be in a 4-point passing touchdown league, because the rushing yards aren't as important when all these other guys are throwing more touchdowns and kind of making up for it in that department. So, Trey Lance and Justin Fields, obviously both year 2 guys here, and they're very hard to evaluate. Trey Lance, he got 2.5 starts. I'm all in on Trey Lance. If you watched my my quarterback sleeper candidates video from last week, I am all in on Trey Lance. Justin Fields is someone that I still believe in, but it's very tough because Chicago has not many weapons around him. It's not the best situation, but if they can hold on for 1 year and just continue to commit to Justin Fields past this year, they're going to have so much money to bring in so much talent. So I'm not completely giving up on Justin Fields. Now, the next 2 guys here, I have them in the red tier. Now, again, if you didn't watch any of my Rate Your Rosters so far, the way that I kind of tier these guys, and this is the biggest problem with this roster, is gold tier are the premium players. You don't want to trade those whatsoever if you can avoid it, unless you can get a haul back for any of them. The green tier is the tier right below that. They're the 1 to 2 year starters, but they should be just fine for Dynasty. Still have a decent return. I'd be willing to give them up for a good price, but I think that they're going to help you contribute quite a bit in fantasy still. The red tier here, which is Carson Wentz and Baker Mayfield, they're guys that are a little bit riskier. You don't really know their long-term potential. I think that they'll still be okay for fantasy. They're not going to be superstar elite studs, but they're not going to kill you either. Baker Mayfield is a little bit of a question because he doesn't have a team right now, but they are the guys that you kind of want to invest in a little bit, because if they can turn into that green or the gold category, they have the most flexibility to move up and down based on this year. So they're a little risky, but they have a lot of reward as well. Then the purple tier is the guys that I have so many questions about. I don't know what to think about them just yet. They could literally bust out and be really good, or they could fall and be nothing. So it's kind of, what are they going to be? And you're kind of projecting these guys in this tier a little bit. And then the tier that is below that, I don't have any on this roster, is the red tier, which I'd be okay with cutting at any time. So quarterback wise, like I said, we got 2 golds. We got Trey Lance and Justin Fields. If everything hits with those 2 guys, you're going to be set at quarterback for a long period of time. Carson Wentz with Washington, Baker Mayfield, no team yet determined. Those guys are a little bit riskier, because Carson Wentz, if he bombs out of Washington this year, he's done. I really truly think that his time as a starter would be over. So I don't think that there's a lot of upside long-term unless he really shows out this year. So if he shows out, he could move up into that green tier. I don't really expect him to ever be in a gold tier ever again, maybe once in his career, but not at this point in time. So Carson Wentz, he is just a little bit more risky. Now, Baker Mayfield doesn't have a team. I still like Baker Mayfield more than the consensus, I think, but yeah, he's hard to evaluate, especially with no team right now. So is he going to ever be a starter again? We don't know. So I can't give him green or gold tier whatsoever. But I do think that there's a little, he's guaranteed to get a role this year, whether it's with the Browns or the Seahawks or the Panthers, wherever it is. I think he's going to have a team to contribute with this year. But yeah, I'm not too sure where that's going to be. Then the last guy here is Desmond Ridder. So Desmond Ridder is a rookie. There's a lot of questions about him. So obviously he can't be an elite option yet. We don't know if he's ever even going to be a starter because he was a 3rd-round pick. So there's a lot of questions around Desmond Ridder. So that said, I am giving the quarterbacks a 9 just because of overall depth at the position. And there are a lot of, for 2022, I think that he's fine in Carson Wentz and Trey Lance. I believe in those 2 for this year. I even think Desmond Ridder is going to be able to contribute for fantasy this year. And I don't think that he's weak in any categories here. But then also, he does have 2 elite guys and a couple guys that could move up into that green tier, like I said before, maybe even 3 with Desmond Ridder. So I like the quarterbacks on this team quite a bit. I think it's one of the strongest aspects of this roster as a whole. Now, running back, we got Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, Rashad Penny, Kenny Gainwell, Tyler Algier with Atlanta, Brian Robinson, the rookie with Washington. There's a lot of rookies here at the bottom of this list. Brian Robinson, Hassan Haskins with Tennessee, and Pierre Strong with New England. So obviously this running back group is topped by the 3 studs at the top, Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, and Cam Akers. Again, Cam Akers is somebody that I listed in my go buy him now category, because everything about Cam Akers, just go listen to that video. I'm all in on him for the long term. The Rams obviously have committed to him long-term, so they're still in on him. And yeah, there's just a lot to like. And if he can return top 12 value for the next couple years, he is a solid gold option. So I love that. Travis Etienne, we haven't got to see it yet, but all reports are he is fully recovered from his foot injury. And again, there were people pre-draft last year that said Travis Etienne was the better running back over Najee Harris. And Najee Harris is running back number 4 off the board, I think, right now. He might have even jumped up to number 3. I can't remember. I haven't seen the July or the June ADP just yet, but Najee Harris is going ridiculously high. And Travis Etienne is no slouch. He is very, very talented, and I think that he's going to show out this year exactly why that is. I didn't have him listed as a top 12 candidate just because we haven't seen a single snap in the NFL just yet, but he is definitely a sleeper in my book. J.K. Dobbins is another guy. Everyone's faded him this year after the hype that he had last year. But man, 3 golds for the running back room, that is more than enough. When you only have to start 2 of these guys and you got 2 flex, that's pretty solid in my book. So the nice thing about these guys at the top is you don't need all three of them to become something, but if they do, that is just such a solid advantage for fantasy football. Now you got Rashad Penny here in the green tier right below those guys. I think that Penny is very good for 2022. I think that he's going to be a free agent after this year, or they're going to re-sign him. I don't really know what to expect for after 2022, but as long as Penny stays healthy, he's shown multiple times he's very good for fantasy football. The problem is just staying healthy. So we will see if he can actually stay healthy to start the season. It's not great that he started in training camp with a little bit of a hamstring injury, but I honestly think that if Seattle lets him walk, he would go to somewhere like the Atlanta Falcons and instantly be the starter for them, and a very good starter at that. So I still like Rashad Penny. The last 5 games of last season really kind of cemented that for me. And again, as long as he's healthy, I'm all in. Now, the next tier here, again, I don't have any red guys because there's nobody here that has really proven the ability to move up or down yet. They're all rookies. 4 of them are rookies, and then there's Kenny Gainwell. I guess Kenny Gainwell could be a red, but I have him in a purple just because Miles Sanders is someone that people are really kind of rising on this offseason, and we'll see how that kind of goes. But Kenny Gainwell, he showed really well last year with Philly, but we just need to see a little bit more in year 2. It could definitely go the other way where he's cemented as a backup and never really going to be able to have a sizable carry load in this offense. So that's why he's more in this purple question mark tier. And you can see if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, there are a lot of purples on this roster. And that's why it made it so hard to evaluate for fantasy. So the other 4 guys, I like the stabs at the rookies. They're all late round rookie picks, so they don't hurt too much. Tyler Algier, Brian Robinson, those guys are probably the premier guys right there. Hassan Haskins is very interesting. If something were to happen to the King, the Yeti, Derrick Henry, Hassan Haskins is a big dude, and he's pretty talented. So I like the opportunity there. Long term, Tennessee seems like the team that's not really going to invest a ton in the running back position, especially while they have Derrick Henry. So, I think that there's a lot of potential for Haskins if, for example, Derrick Henry were to miss another half a season or something. Derrick Henry's been very, very lucky for injuries throughout his career. And I'm sure that the size aspect that he has to his game helps with that. But Hassan Haskins has just such a prime opportunity if something were to go down with Derrick Henry. And again, for a 4th round pick, I think that's what he linked me his rookie draft. And it was a 4th round pick. So yeah, that is free money in my book. And Pierre Strong, the next guy here, New England running back, it doesn't hurt to take a stab on him. People kind of liked him before the draft, but yeah, no real faith there, but he has the potential possibly to jump up a tier or 2 in the future. I don't think anything for 2022 for Pierre Strong, but we will see. As a Patriots fan, you never know with these guys. So the running backs, I am going to give it an 8. It has pretty solid depth overall. There's a lot of shots in the dark with those rookies, like I said. But the starters, again, you don't need all 3 of Etienne, Dobbins, and Akers to hit. If one of them or 2 of them hit, that's already a massive steal for fantasy, especially for Dynasty. And then you got Rashad Penny, who again, as long as he's healthy, gives you a solid 3 core right there. And again, if all 3 of those elite guys at the top, the golds at the top hit, man, you just got 4 guys here that can definitely produce for fantasy football, which gives you a massive advantage. So I do like the running backs. I just think that there's a little bit too much risk around these guys. That's why I kind of knocked it a little bit down here to an 8. All right, the wide receiver position. We got Chris Godwin premiering at the top here. Not the best situation with the injury, but it is Dynasty, so I'm not going to let that affect me too much. I do really like Chris Godwin as a talent. Cortland Sutton with the Denver Broncos, George Pickens, the rookie out of Pitt, Jamison Williams out of Detroit, the rookie there, DJ Chark out of Detroit, so kind of a double up there. Kadarius Toney, one of the most difficult people to evaluate this offseason. It's like either you love him or you hate him, and there's no in between with Kadarius Toney. Alec Pierce with Indianapolis, rookie there. Guy had a lot of rookie picks, it looks like. But then the question mark tier here is Nico Collins with Houston, Diami Brown with Washington, James Washington with Dallas, which is kind of interesting. He's a sleeper in my book. Paris Campbell with Indianapolis, again, I kind of double up there, and Darius Slayton with the Giants. So obviously we got 4 guys here at the top of this list: Chris Godwin, Courtland Sutton, George Pickens, and Jameson Williams. They're the gold tier guys here. And the reason why, you're going to say, well, you don't have rookies in the other categories ranked this high, but I personally am all in on George Pickens. The opportunity for George Pickens is just immense. Maybe not in 2022 while they have Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool, but there is a world where Chase Claypool runs his mouth one too many times to Mike Tomlin and gets himself benched for his antics on the field, and George Pickens is all of a sudden a starter this year. And George Pickens is that dude. He is that dude. So he is a gold level talent to me, but I can see people's argument why he shouldn't be up that high. But I believe in the talent there. Same with Jameson Williams. I think that he's just a difference maker of a wide receiver. And even if we don't get to see him throughout the whole 2022 season, it's Dynasty. I am all in on Jameson Williams, the game-changing, game-breaking abilities that he has. Courtland Sutton with Denver definitely gets the upgrade at quarterback with Russell Wilson. Chris Godwin coming off the injury, so he's not going to be available probably to start the season. But the nice thing is, even though he has Jameson Williams, who's not going to be starting at the beginning of the year, Chris Godwin not going to be starting at the beginning of the year, George Pickens probably not starting at the beginning of the year. So definite weakness there at the wide receiver when you have to start 3 of these guys. So it's a little risky there. But I like Courtland Sutton quite a bit. DJ Chark with Detroit is going to eat a ton of volume while Jameson's on the sidelines. And people, I am all in on DJ Chark, and I've talked about it multiple times, but stop sleeping on DJ Chark, man, I'm telling you. And then you got some other guys here, Kadarius Toney. That is not the best starting core there of DJ Chark, Kadarius Toney, and Courtland Sutton for 3 wide receivers. So, yeah, it might be rough to start the season, but if this guy can steal some wins, man, he's got a very competitive group of players here. So maybe James Washington as we get down here a little bit further. But Kadarius Toney, again, he's someone that's very hard to evaluate. Alec Pierce, I like long-term for Indy, but he's a rookie, so he might start a little bit slower. I think that Michael Pittman's going to be the star of that show, and then we'll see if Pierce can really kind of start to take over the show as the season goes on. Kadarius Toney, again, it's just I don't even know if he's going to be with the Giants to start the season. So that's one of the hard things right there. But yeah, the Giants are also a very crowded receiving room there. So it's a little tough. So the biggest strategy that I would say for these wide receivers, you got Nico Collins and Diami Brown, James Washington, Paris Campbell, and Darius Slayton as the question marks. I would definitely try and get a wide receiver that'll be guaranteed to start with decent value, but that's a little hard. So the question is, what do you have to give up for one of those guys? But if you can get one of those lower end Brandon Cooks type of players, that would definitely be an advantage there. But the question mark guys here, Nico Collins, Diami Brown, they're second-year players, so they could completely bust out of the league. Not going to rely on them too much here with this roster, but James Washington, Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton, these guys are the hardest here to evaluate. James Washington goes over to Dallas. Everyone's talking about CeeDee Lamb, how they love CeeDee Lamb, but James Washington was a good player at once upon a time. Second-round pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers, if I remember correctly, going over to Dallas. They don't have a ton of wide receivers to start the season because of injuries. So there's a lot of opportunity here for James Washington. And it is pretty nice because it does keep CeeDee Lamb in the slot potentially, which is where he would thrive much more with his skill set. So James Washington, he'll be on the field quite a bit, in my opinion. And then there's Paris Campbell rumors yet again. He's looking really good in camp. And yeah, it's just... oh, Paris, he's going to break my heart again, and he just cannot stay healthy. But this guy is a second-round pick, if I remember right, but they just haven't been able to use him for 4 years now because he's just not been able to stay healthy. But man, the dude has all the skills that you want for a player. And then Darius Slayton, if for some reason they got rid of Kadarius Toney, Darius Slayton and Daniel Jones do have a connection. The dude scores just, whenever he scores touchdowns, it comes in pairs, right? He always gets double touchdowns every time. So there is some potential starter like flex options there if you don't have anyone else to start. But yeah, I could see Darius Slayton kind of disappearing from the league pretty quickly here after this. So wide receiver wise, I'm going to give it a 7. Maybe it's like a 6.5. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. There's a lot of potential here long term, but if you're trying to compete in 2022, it's a little risky there. So again, biggest piece of advice is probably going to get a wide receiver on this team. All right, now the tight end position, they've got Cole Kmet with Chicago, Irv Smith with Minnesota, David Njoku with Cleveland, Greg Dulcich with Denver, rookie there, Evan Ingram with Jacksonville, Jonnu Smith with New England, and Kylan Granson with Indy. So with it being 2-point tight end premium, this is a better looking tight end group than you would think. And basically, if you don't have one of those top guys, it's rough out there in the streets. But I think Cole Kmet here really makes this a decent group of tight ends because Cole Kmet is someone who I think honestly is going to have like 120, 130 targets this year. And again, at 2-point tight end premium, every single catch, let's say he has a 60% catch rate and it's only 80 catches, right? That's a lot. That's 160 points without any yards or any touchdowns or anything. So Cole Kmet is someone that is very interesting, at least for competing in this league. Now, Irv Smith with Minnesota, post-hype sleeper here. Everyone was really hot on Irv Smith last year. Had the unfortunate season-ending injury, I think in like week 3 of the preseason last year, and then he just fell off everyone's radar, and he's finally coming back. And if you look at the Minnesota passing core, it's not the best. Again, I did a breakdown of those as well. You can go check out the YouTube channel for all of the divisional breakdowns here. Minnesota, not the best at wide receivers. And they got a guy coming over with the new head coach who likes to run 3 wide receiver sets. And I don't think they have a great third. I think that Irv Smith could have a lot of volume in this offense just out of necessity because they need more wide receivers in this room. So Irv Smith, I think, is someone that people are kind of sleeping on, and I think he has a lot of opportunity. There was a lot of hype around him last year, and I want to see that going again this year. David Njoku with Cleveland just signed the extension. Again, I talked about this a little bit with my hype episode for these guys. He should be something. He should. They paid him a lot of money. I don't think they're going to pay him to come in and be a blocker for $14 million a year. That's a lot of money for a tight end. So that tells me that they want to get him involved in the passing game, but we just got to see it to believe it. But either way, he's got like 4 more years on his contract. So he's going to be with the Browns for a while. So you're going to be able to use him possibly for a while, especially if he pays off and they start to use him more in the passing game. Greg Dulcich with Denver, like the skill set quite a bit, and I don't think Albert Okwuegbunam is a threat to his volume long term. He might start a little bit slow this year because he is a rookie, but I think year 2 for Greg Dulcich is going to be very nice. So that is a great addition to this tight end core here on this roster. Evan Ingram with Jacksonville. He could be something. I don't love Jacksonville. Again, listen to those breakdown episodes. I don't love the wide receiving options for Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm really in on Laviska Shenault because I don't think that Christian Kirk is very good. And besides Christian Kirk, Laviska Shenault, and Travis Etienne, they got really nobody else. So they gave Evan Ingram a decent paycheck to come in here for 1 year, and I think they're going to try and use him quite a bit. So I like Evan Ingram, and he definitely has the opportunity to move up, but he's on a 1-year deal with Jacksonville, so there is risk there long term. Then Jonnu Smith and Kylan Granson. The Indianapolis Colts brought in a tight end. I think it was Jelani Woods in the 3rd round of this year's draft class. And he was a physical freak, just a very good athlete. So it could wipe Kylan Granson off the face of the earth here. He's a smaller dude, so Jelani Woods is much more of an athlete than Kylan Granson, but it's hard to tell. It really is. So he's somebody that could be in the red tier of player. Like I said, I don't have any on this roster, but he's someone that if you needed to create a spot, I wouldn't be completely upset cutting him from this team. And then Johnny Smith with New England. Again, I'm a Patriots fan. Oh, it just hurt watching what they did with him last year. Hopefully this year they can utilize him quite a bit more, but we will see. So I'm going to give the tight end position a 7. Again, in 2-point tight end premium, I think it boosts this. If it was 1 tight end, it would definitely be probably like a 5, but I think there's enough depth here and there's enough volume for those top guys that we should be just fine. If you had to start 1 or 2, maybe even 3 of these guys, again, 2-point tight end premium, things get wild. It is very hard to start unreliable wide receivers in the flex or unreliable running backs in the flex over some of these tight ends, just because, think about it, right? You get 5 catches for 50 yards. That's 15 points in these leagues. That's crazy. That's a good week from a receiver or a running back in your flex, right? So that's like nothing for some of these tight ends that get decent volume. So yeah, I like that quite a bit. All right, so overall depth on this roster, I am going to give a 9. Like I talked about with the positional breakdowns, this roster is very, very deep at every position. You got 5 potential quarterbacks in a super flex league. That is huge. That is so many quarterbacks, It's a 12 team, right? If every team had 3 guys, that's 36 quarterbacks. This team has 5. That is huge. That means some of these guys won't even have 1, maybe 2 guys that they can trust on a week-to-week basis. So that's massive for the quarterback position. Running back, you got quite a few potential guys, but you got a nice plethora of guys at the top there. Wide receiver, long term, I think it's very, very good for this team. But again, you got Chris Godwin and Jameson Williams and George Pickens, who might not contribute at all in 2022. So that does hurt you a little bit there. But tight end, same thing. You got quite a few guys that should be able to get volume, and they're locked up for a couple years here. So I like it quite a bit. And I like the depth overall on this team, so I give it a 9. Now, draft capital is the last thing we're going to cover here. It's something that I tried to touch on the last episodes of Rate My Roster, but really trying to get into it a little bit more here. In 2023, a first, 2 fourths, and a fifth. That's not great considering the draft class that we have coming next year. There's a lot of value, especially in the second round too. Not having a second round is a massive detriment to this roster. So that really hurts it. But in 2024 has all the picks, so there's nothing crazy there. So draft capital, definitely a 5 out of 10. It's not the best whatsoever. It definitely needs more picks. So, yeah, that's the tough part, is who are you going to sell for some of that future capital? Because at this point in time, it feels like everybody that's invested in 2023 has bought all those picks. Everyone that's interested in selling for 2022 has kind of sold out. So it's kind of that limbo zone of you're not going to really get more of those picks at this point. You might have to wait till next offseason. But, yeah, draft capital definitely hurts it a little bit there. So that said, the final score on this team, and as we come over here, we got the little drum roll. We are giving this roster a 7 out of 10 overall, 7 out of 10. So yeah, again, it's not the best roster. It's not the worst. It's very, very deep. And if some of these guys long-term can start to pay off, that's huge. That's just so big for this roster. But there is a lot of risk with it as well. If all 3 of Etienne, Dobbins, and Akers bust out where they're not what you expect them to be for Dynasty football, that's a massive detriment, because we know the risk with Penny. If he's not healthy, which is quite often, it's not good. So yeah, it could go from having 4 guys at the top to 0 real quick, but I don't think that, based on the laws of probability here, I don't think that's going to happen. Again, same with the wide receivers. I believe in these guys too much to kind of write them off, but yeah, it could go from a lot of hype and potential to nothing really, really quickly. And that's kind of the whole theme of this roster, is there's a lot of potential on it. So I like the roster quite a bit, but I think that there's definitely some weaknesses, definitely needs more draft picks for the future, definitely could use some upgrades at the wide receiver and tight end position in terms of starters. But yeah, not a bad roster. Very, very deep. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Please follow me over on Twitter. If you want me to break down one of your rosters, follow me over on Twitter, and I'd be happy to get you on the list of rosters. And I'm going to keep going with these all throughout the summer. But thank you guys so much for listening. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Tell your friends about the podcast. Just one friend. That's all I'm asking. If everyone could tell one friend and then they tell one friend, I could have like 20 followers in like 2 months. That'd be great. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for listening. That's the little joke, dry humor. The one thing I was thinking about too, quick tangent as we end this podcast, but one thing I was thinking about is there was a post on Twitter the last couple of days that someone was talking about solo podcasts for fantasy football and everything. And they're so hard because I have charisma, right? I do have good charisma, but it's so hard to get across without someone to interact with and bring it out in me, right? So I'm trying to get better about that and picture myself talking to you guys, but it is a little hard at times. So sometimes my jokes aren't always the best, right? But I'm working on it. I'm working on it for you guys. So I appreciate you. Thank you guys so much for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend, whatever you can do to help me. I appreciate you guys. Have a good night.